Hello and welcome to the 8th part of our 10-part series that focuses on everything you need to know to get the best out of your Canon EOS DSLR. In this 8th part, we're going to be covering everything you need to know about shooting in the shutter priority mode, also known as TV. TV is a semi-automatic mode and stands for time value, but it's most commonly known as shutter priority. The great thing about this mode is that it gives you part control over the exposure settings. You select the shutter speed and the camera selects the appropriate aperture to compensate for the light. The shutter speed is the length of time the shutter is open, which determines how long the sensor is exposed to light. Shutter speeds are measured in seconds and fractions of seconds and can range from a really fast shutter speed of say 1/5000th of a second to much slower shutter speed of a few seconds. The difference between each shutter speed is known as a stop. As you increase the shutter speed, each stop halves the amount of light, and as you decrease the shutter speed, it doubles the amount of light. To select the TV mode, turn the main mode dial to TV and set your desired shutter speed. So when would you use shutter priority? We tend to use the TV mode when we want full control over the shutter speed. The motive of using different shutter speeds is to control how we capture movement. So we would switch to shutter priority mode when we want to capture a moving subject. A fast shutter speed will freeze motion and a slow shutter speed will show motion as a blur. For example, here we're photographing moving water. If we wanted to freeze the movement, we would select a fast shutter speed of 1/160th of a second. If we wanted to emphasise the movement and capture a motion blur to exaggerate the water's movement, we would select a slower shutter speed of 6 seconds. In both cases, the camera will judge how much light this would let in and will select the aperture accordingly. To get a slower shutter speed in the middle of the day, I've attached an ND variable filter to the end of the lens. The general rule of thumb is anything slower than 1/60th of a second to use a tripod. It is also worth considering the depth of field you want to achieve when selecting a shutter speed. As you increase the shutter speed, the camera will open up the aperture size. The beauty of digital is that you can see the results instantly, so you can experiment to work out your desired effects. There will be times when the camera can't accommodate your shutter speed selection. For example, trying to freeze movement by using fast shutter speeds in low light conditions. Your camera's maximum aperture may not be wide enough to let in the amount of light needed for a correct exposure. If this occurs, your camera's aperture settings will blink, meaning the shot is underexposed. To combat this, you would have to decrease the shutter speed to let in more light. However, this might not be enough to freeze the action in your image, so the next option is to increase your ISO. This also applies if your image is going to be overexposed. The minimum aperture will blink and you will need to set either a faster shutter speed or a lower ISO.